Go ahead, whenever.
All right. Hello and welcome again to the BF's Word. I'm your host, Benjamin FriedJamin Friedman, and here with me are both David, TheDynasty Spitler, and Jesse, iLLogicall Hilton. Here in part 4 of our NA LCS preview, we're going to hit on the region's two traditional powerhouses, Team Solo Mid and Cloud9, one of which made a big change while the other looked less than stellar in international competition. So let's start with Cloud9 and their huge change. The longest standing roster in North America broke up this offseason with High's retirement. They brought in Incarnation, a European mid laner with an interesting past. Riot cleared him to play, and this is his first split of eligibility. So the biggest question that I have for you guys is, will he live up to the hype? And even if he does, well, let's start there. Will he live up to the hype?
Well, I've heard some about the inner workings of some of the scrims that he's been playing against TSM and stuff from watching some streams. And I don't think he's going to be like some, next level shit coming in, dominating everyone or anything like that. From what I've heard, it's like he's just still learning the ropes of competitive play. Definitely not as good as Bjergsen. But I will say, I think it's kind of a long-term investment. They might pull kind of a spring season all over again where they do quite poorly in the beginning, but come together towards the end. I think it'll take a little while for them to adjust with the shot calling. I don't know how long that's going to take, though, but I think they have the right roster that they need to go to Worlds, for sure.
I don't know if they even will struggle at the start. I just don't think they'll be at their full, they won't be at their full function, their full power level. It won't be over 9,000 until later on in the season. But
They're charging for like 4 episodes.
exactly, the first couple of weeks they'll have to. But I mean, even still, I think they'll do okay. They'll be fine. I think Incarnation's. This is obviously without seeing, I'm not an insider on Cloud9, but I think he's going to be a very effective mid laner for them. As long as once they get the shot calling and the team like synergy down with the mid lane change, I think they're going to do really, really well with him.
All right. Okay, so do you think that this move would catapult them over Team Solo Mid, and if you don't think that, what other improvements, roster or otherwise, could they make to get them that number 1 seed from North America?
It's really hard to say which TSM is going to show up for this season, but I don't think that Cloud9 is going to be like a lot better than TSM or even any of the other, top half of the LCS teams. They might reach that point. I would like to see them, I'm a big Cloud9 fan, so I'd love to see them go back to like, season 3, season 4 style. And I think they have the potential to do that. But I don't think they're going to dominate or anything like that, at least initially.
Yeah. Will they catapult TSM? I don't know. They definitely have the potential to. I think they don't necessarily need other roster improvements. They have pretty solid players and performers in every role. I mean, you don't necessarily see Lemonation as the same play style as maybe, your Lustboy or even like a Yellow Star or Kiwi Kid style of aggressive support. He's just a consistent, I mean, unless you put him on something weird, which he did a few times and whatever, but he's a consistent and smart player, and that's a great thing for their overall team. And then, you've got Balls doing stuff in top. Meteos is one of the best junglers. Sneaky is one of the best AD carries, probably in the West. He's on another level right now.
So from what Sneaky said, Meteos is their new primary shot caller.
Yeah. But, yeah, and so as long as they synergize with that, that's their major improvement, really. It's just locking down how they're going to do their in-game strategies and how they're going to react to situations with a different person in mid.
All right. Okay. Sort of tough to talk about it without having seen Incarnation play.
Right.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I
to,
mean, you look at it. You
Probably
see
the
his-
most exciting thing to see this year.
Yeah, you see his solo queue stuff and everything. It's like, wow, he's making a lot of really cool plays, and everyone knows he's a master of Fizz or Azir or whatever he's doing right now. He's crazy good at those.
Right.
And
I know.
it's whatever, but you have to see him in competitive play, and I do think he's gonna get there. I just think they have to work it out, and it might be an interesting growing period. I don't think they're going to have quite the same struggles they had at the start of Spring Split, even if they do take a little while to get going. But it might take a little bit to see the full potential come through.
You know what I want to see is Sneaky's been spamming Ezreal like every single game in solo queue now.
I mean,
so
FriedJamin took it today in their game, and
I didn't watch that.
It went okay. They didn't
Yeah,
win.
I mean,
but he didn't.
Forgiven did tons of damage in that game.
Yeah.
It's the cycle of nerfs.
Speaking of Fizz and playing, never mind. I don't want to talk about that. But just for the record, there was a full tank Cinder Hulk Fizz that Zatai played last night, and it was amazing.
Oh, wow.
So you should watch the second game of their series from last night just for that. It was best.
Yeah, it's more of a balls thing than an incarnation thing.
I'm aware of that. I just
Yeah.
we talked about Fizz and his that was probably the most fun champion pickup.
I mean, it's pretty cool. I think it's
we're
good
moving
stuff.
on from that. I just wanted to say it because we were talking about Fizz. All right, so we're like, well, it sort of depends on. Jesse alluded to this earlier. Which TSM is going to show up? So they were indisputably the best team in North America last split, and then at MSI they looked not so hot. So I guess we should start with the implications of that. Is that a referendum on North America as a region, or do you think that was a one-off thing where TSM just looked really bad that weekend? If you had to give it your best guess.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily it doesn't say that NA is terrible. But I mean, there's no other way to really compare the regions than those major tournaments. So ultimately, it does mean that NA is the worst region out of everything except the wild card region. But I don't think TSM is going to be bad or anything. I think they'll still have the top spot or top 2, maybe top 3 at worst. But I think they'll definitely learn from their mistakes that they made at MSI, and they won't be as one-dimensional coming back in.
Yeah.
They might have a little bit of kinks to sort out in the process.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Yeah. I mean, with regards to TSM at MSI, I mean, I think it's you definitely can look at it and say, okay, NA is not quite as strong as maybe we thought coming out of IEM, the one that TSM won in Katowice. But I still think that as we watched the MSI games go, they lost to Fnatic in a game that they just weren't prepared for. I don't know what happened. It was ugly,
It was
and
the
then,
calf top, right?
Yeah, and then
That overconfidence, man.
And then after that, you just saw them just go downhill. They fell off a cliff. Besides the wild card game against Besiktas, who even then they didn't they had weird moments in that game. They still came out and just stomped them by the end, but they were just off. They were just off the whole tournament, and they looked terrible, and they just tilted, and it just became a slippery slope of just getting worse and worse every game.
Yep.
So I don't think necessarily it says that NA's horrible and EU's amazing, and then obviously Korea and China were the 2 best regions there. Although,
Oh my god.
Although we did see Fnatic, looked really, really good in their series against SKT. But
Yeah, they did.
I mean, Fnatic is very, very, very good as a team. But I think NA definitely has the chance this season to compete again with EU and maybe China and Korea. It's similar to last year at Worlds, where you saw the EU and NA teams taking games off of Southeast Asia, taking games off of the mid-tier Koreans and the Chinese teams. Not dominating them, not necessarily being the best regions, but they're taking. They're not. I don't think it's going to be a pathetic showing like in season 2 or maybe season 3.
They could plan LCK. Like you think that the top teams from those regions could qualify for like a league
qualify?
like LCK?
Yeah.
I mean, be one of those 8 or 10 teams.
Yeah. I
and-
think so. I mean, I don't think you can. I think you'd be crazy to say that.
Yeah,
all
I
10
do
teams.
too.
You're gonna go and tell me that Anarchy is just gonna dump all over Cloud9?
Actually,
TSM or
Anarchy is
something, but,
awesome.
like,
So maybe you should pick a different team because Anarchy is my shit.
Seemed pretty cool. So
Mickey is a beast. So
Yeah, no.
let's. Why don't you pick
Just say it, like-
SBNU or however you?
yeah,
pronounce
whatever. I mean,
that. Yeah,
but
maybe
you know what I
like
mean.
Incredible Miracle and
Incredible Miracle
Samsung.
just beat Anarchy. But anyway,
look. No, Anarchy is like the unicorns of love for me. All right, just be nice to them no matter what.
they're literally like 1 and 3. But anyway, we're just
Yeah,
gonna,
and their
we're gonna
one
move-
was amazing.
okay. Whatever. Back to TSO. But yeah, I think I don't think it also, to correlate back into the split, I really don't think that TSM's terrible MSI performance gives a ton to the other teams to like blueprint for beating TSM.
Yeah.
Mostly because, like I was saying, I think they just tilted and just like threw away all their plans and everything. And
yes, I
think
agree.
yeah. So I think it shows you some of their weaknesses. It definitely shows some of the stuff that's going to be able to beat them. But I don't think it shows you like, hey, because they were horrendous against AHQ, that they're gonna pick what AHQ picked and you'll beat them necessarily. You know what I mean? Or play like AHQ
Right.
played and you'll beat them. It's a lot of them just beating themselves. I think they're still going to be a top team, and maybe Santorin will gank top. Who knows?
Maybe, just maybe.
That's the question of the split right there.
So
I'm sure he will. I'm not worried about it. I can't imagine. All right. Let's segue that into I guess we have two other things that we wanted to hit on in part 4 that are more wrap up and summary ish. Let's talk about coaches for a little bit because Dynasty and I talked about them, I guess, on Wednesday without you, illogical. Okay. But it was sort of how much is a coach worth versus not necessarily not having one, but what's a good coach versus a bad coach, and how much blame is there on coaching when a team tilts like that and doesn't make adjustments throughout the course of a tournament? And I'm not trying to call out Loco. I'm asking, like, is that something that you think is his job, or is that a player issue, or just sort of give me your idea on how much a coach is worth and what you think their responsibility.
I think current coaches in League of Legends in general, maybe outside, I don't know anything much about the coaching structure in Korea or China, but I know in the West that it is not nearly as useful as it could be. And I think a lot of it has to do with just inexperience of all of the coaches that usually end up being there. They're either ex-players or just friends of the team, or just random people. And they're usually the same age. They don't command respect, and as a result, they don't really have much power. So I think it's kind of hard to estimate how much it's the coach's fault, because I think it depends on the team. It's because I think some teams have a coach that has more power than others, but overall, mostly they have very little power. So I wouldn't say it's that big of an influence.
All right. Did you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at, I actually think the idea that CLG has with the coaching is probably a good idea. Not that I think you necessarily need 2 coaches like that, but if you have someone focused on kind of the behind the scenes preparation, the overall, maybe the more overall strategies and the teamwork side, and then you have someone focused on the day-to-day, game-to-game preparations, team comps, strategies right before a game starts based on what the champ select looks like. You can merge that into the same person, but we really don't see that happen a lot yet. So I think that might eventually be the way that it goes. But you want both of those aspects, and you want both of them to be present and effective. And so I think I think that might actually benefit CLG that they have that. I think Skara was fit a lot into that whole friend of the team, doesn't command a ton of respect, even though he has the whole history of, obviously being Skara and all that he's
Right.
done. But I think the players didn't necessarily respect him as a coach, and he wasn't able to fix a lot of problems.
Right.
I think,
What-
and stuff
when-
like that's going to continue happening for at least a little while until they kind of figure it out. And maybe CLG's got it. Maybe this will boost CLG like crazy with the coaching, and everyone else will jump on. But I don't know. I think their team structure as a whole is a little bit, preventative of that. But we'll get to that later, I guess.
All right, time for the fun hot takes portion of our cast here. Unfortunately, since your stream is on a delay and I can't see the graphics, you're gonna have to reveal vocally to iLLogicall and I who we chose when we ranked each team 1 to 10 in our predictions for the coming split. All right, so your list also gonna go up there?
What's up?
Are you also putting your list? Are we getting all three of us, or is it just?
Yeah,
Jesse?
we're getting all three at the same time.
Y'all both have
Awesome.
dogs in the background.
Yeah.
Nice, good call.
Okay, so
Dog lovers, watch our podcast or watch our talk show.
all right, so why don't you just say, I'll show them on the screen, but then we'll just each say our own for the first handful, right? So,
All right.
So the first ones are 10th and 9th place. 10th is the auto relegation, and 9th place is the next worst team. So in 10th place, this is actually not that surprising. All three of us picked the same.
All right.
We all
RIP.
actually did. We all do that? Hold on. Yes, we did. We did all
Said
do
team
that.
8.
Wait, we all said. Oh, okay. Wait, Jesse said team 8 was
Oh.
gonna be number 9.
My bad. I did screw it up, didn't I?
I guess so.
T8.
Wait, no, I said they were number 10.
Hold on.
What? Oh my gosh.
Jesse, who's number 10?
Team 8.
Okay. Then besides that, my fault.
You're ruining these hot takes right now.
I did. We need to hear that reasoning behind. So I'll give my reasoning for 10.
But we
to
all
9.
said dig number 9, which I think is really interesting. But let's start with team 8.
Yeah.
Y'all
So
both said TDK. Wow.
yeah. So what's the thoughts behind Team 8 at number 10? Because I think most people consider them to be a bit higher than that. And I know that Ben and I both.
I just have some faith in the 2 challenger teams that are coming in compared to like the lower tier current LCS teams. And I think Team 8 has no potential to really improve much. I mean, maybe they could be anywhere from like.
You're not on the
7 to-
Nian Tanso train.
I mean, I was, but honestly, I just don't feel like he's ever really lived up to any sort of hype that I used to have for him. So
Yeah.
I'm not at all, no.
Okay, so the reason why I picked Team Dragon Knights as 10th, which Ben and I went over in our part 1 of this preview, is that I think this team just doesn't really have a whole lot of direction. They came up, and their biggest identity when they won their Challengers promotion was, hey, Alex Ich is carrying us. Hey, our 80 carries an interesting Korean guy who's been playing here, and oh wait, he left immediately after we qualified, and oh, Alex Ich isn't on the team. And so like this whole team dynamic is just ridiculous,
It's the Seraph team.
Yeah, so they bring in a 80 carry and mid laner from Korea, and that's a fine thing. But you know who else did that? Coast. You know who else did that? Dignitas. Not necessarily those same positions, but just bringing in random people. And I don't think that necessarily spells success. I think that Emperor is probably actually going to tilt this team. I think he's got some personal struggles that he'll have to go through.
That's way hotter than what you said yesterday for Wednesday. All
and
right.
besides that, they're not even playing with these guys yet. They don't have work visas. So we're going to watch a team of 5 random challenger players and Seraph, I guess, so 4 challenger players and Seraph lose miserably tomorrow and Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, the first week is going to be really shitty for them.
And maybe even into, weeks 2 and 3 until they get their visa situation sorted
Yeah,
out.
it really depends on that situation
They're-
me. But
they're-
I see them
yeah.
as a potential to be very similar to something like TIP.
Okay, that's a very, very interesting take there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm excited. You know what? You've got me now. I want to see TDK do well.
Yeah.
All right, he has me convinced. So we all said Dignitas at number 9. Is it all so? Do we need to talk about Dignitas again?
I mean,
Or
we can just
like-
do a quick rundown on it. I mean,
Dignitas's bot lane seems interesting and fun. Everything about them is old and busted, and I'm not really interested.
I mean, I
anymore.
actually think Kiwi Kid hard carried them to stay in the LCS, so I give him a lot of credit actually right now as being a good player.
for sure.
Zingy is definitely their weakest link.
If we were just power ranking junglers right now,
Kiwi.
I mean,
he's-
he was
he's-
bad even in the games they won against Fusion. So I don't know what. Maybe he'll change, but I think they're gonna look to replace him before the end of the split.
All hail.
they tried.
I know. They tried to
tried.
get Helios, which is
Yeah, which is a disaster story. In
Is
and of
that
itself.
is that our new god?
Kiwi Kid? Yeah, he's the new host of the show.
nice.
All right. So wait.
I love me
So we
Kiwi.
started declaring podcast favorites just sort of out of nowhere, to be
Oh, I
honest.
love Kiwi Kid.
He's a
But-
favorite of the podcast,
But the
right?
problem, yeah. So the problem with Dignitas is that
Wow.
Kiwi Kid is their biggest standout player, and that's a huge problem. Like they're gonna need Shifter to get back into playing well. They're gonna need their top and AD carry to start performing a little bit better. I think they don't quite have it together. I mean, if you compare them to a challenger team, they're still probably better than the challenger teams, but I just think they're stuck on the bottom tier of LCS right now, and they might have to blow the whole team up again. Maybe do a Fnatic. I
If
don't
Kiwi
know,
Kid
we'll
ever
see.
wants to come and host the podcast, he can.
All right.
I want to make that abundantly clear.
Just replace that picture in the middle.
If he ever happens to hear this, please come and take my spot, by all means.
So, all right. So moving on to 7 and 8. So these are the other two teams not to make the playoffs. 7th is staying in the LCS, and 8th has to fight for relegation. So in 8th place, I selected Team Enemy. Ben,
Who
you
did I
selected you selected Enemy as well, and,
Okay.
and Jesse selected who in 8th place?
Oh, not my boys!
Yeah.
Oh no!
So Jesse has
I love Gravity. too,
Gravity
yeah.
fighting for relegation.
did.
And then in 7th, I have teammate Ben. You have CLG, and
Yeah,
Jesse
I
has,
have CLG.
Jesse
That was
has-
my hot take.
Jesse has a little more faith in Enemy. So as far as 8 goes, 8 and 7, I guess we can kind of consider Enemy. 8 and 7 is about the same. Obviously not the same, but we can kind of talk about how I think that Enemy is probably by far the better of the two challenger teams that came up.
Oh, by far. And Trashy
Um,
is a beast.
I think they're gonna have some success. I think they're just not gonna be able to take enough games off the playoff type teams to be able to launch themselves.
Yeah, I think they'll
into
be
the-
very similar to Gravity last split, where
Yeah.
they have a couple LCS veterans, or at least they've played in LCS some, and so they have experience and they have good teamwork, but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna break into the top 4.
Uh-oh. Kind of lost Jesse there for a second, but I got you. Yeah, top 4. Probably not. Obviously, you don't have them in 5 or 6 either. But, so, that's rough that Gravity's so low. What do you have Gravity so low for? You think that the loss of Cop and Tate Vicious is going to hurt them a lot?
Yeah, I just don't have any faith in Hanser. Keen, Keen is great, but very inconsistent. Same with Bunny Fufu, very inconsistent. And Altec, I think he's like a worse version of Pobelter.
That's a
Or
weird.
there's been
that's
this
a
hype
weird
behind
comparison,
him.
But yeah.
I mean, there's
He's
been
younger,
this hype-
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
He's-
he's just never really impressed me at all. And
This
I
would be
don't-
like if he emerged this split. This would be like if Pobelter emerged like 2 splits ago.
Yeah. So, but
yeah,
anyway.
maybe.
Yeah. So since we're running a bit long here, so we'll just kind of speed run this. I think that.
Oh, okay.
I
you
think
don't
that.
want to talk about CLG.
No.
I
We're
see.
gonna do it real fast. I'll give you a chance to talk about it. I think Team 8 in 7th is a repeat of what they did last split. I think we talked about this a little bit in part 2 of our podcast. I think teammates going to be a little bit better, but I think the overall level of play in the LCS is going to be higher this split, so I think it's going to leave them about the same. So go ahead, CLG.
I think CLG is going to miss the playoffs, and which will finally prompt them to like blow up the team, start all over again, like actually think about like what a good team structure should look like, and really to start from the ground up. I think that their problems go so much deeper than Link and Scarra. Like it's always something with them. They always come out the same sort of flat. They look the same every season with a totally different roster, and I don't think anything's going to change this year.
Yeah.
I think while every other team is getting better, they just start staying the same.
Yeah. So 6th through 4th. So this is your playoff teams who do not make worlds.
Okay.
In 6th place, I have CLG. In 5th place, I have Gravity. And in 3rd place, I have Team Liquid. I'll just give a quick rundown of what my thoughts behind this are. I think CLG is pretty similar to what you said. I mean, I only put them one spot higher. I think they're going to struggle a bit this split. I think they might actually improve a little bit towards the end and then have a little bit of a... I think they might sneak into the playoffs and then just kind of fall apart in the playoffs. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. They might surge a little bit at the end towards like 4 or 5, but I don't think they're going to have we're almost on the top, and then we fell apart in the playoffs like they did in the spring. Gravity at 5th, I think that's about where they are. I think they're about the 5th best team. If Move works out well, if he's terrible, then, who knows?
They could fall to 8th.
Yeah.
They could fall to 8th if that move doesn't work out.
And then earlier, I think they're just a little bit behind Team Impulse, and I think they're going to end up just on the outside of the world.
All right. I don't we see this. Can we just move on to 3? Because like the hot take over there on the right side is exact opposite of what I said.
The hottest take. Hold on. The hottest take so far
Is that really the hottest take?
TDK at number 6. Can you explain
why? Yeah,
why?
we already knew about that.
Yeah, but can you
talk about I explained it already. I think that okay, so that's a big gamble. That's kind of where I just took a gamble on them because I have no idea if their full roster is really going to become a reality. But I think Seraph looked really good on a team that he kind of had more control over, and they also have 2 really strong Koreans. So I think they have potential to do really well if they can get their team together.
Yeah. I do think he'll be better than he was on CLG. That's for sure.
No doubt. I think he
TDK impressed me in their promotion games. I think he played really well.
So in 3rd place and making Worlds as the lowest seed in NA, I said Team Impulse. We kind of already discussed this a little bit, but I do think that they're going to get a little bit over that hump. I think they're going to do actually quite well this split, and I think they might actually show up pretty well in Worlds, although I do think their bot lane will be exposed by other Worlds Championship teams. So I think they're going to do pretty good, but probably not make it out of groups or anything like that. Ben?
Yeah, I mean, and we already talked about this. I'm sort of riding. I love Team Liquid, and I think they're really good. I think they have a solid player at every single spot on their roster. I mean, Xpecial at this point almost gets overlooked when we talk about supports, even though he's definitely still one of the best supports on the server, if not, internationally, he's well respected. Piglet is a world champion and actually sort of played like it in the playoffs and going into the playoffs last year. Phoenix is good. I mean, he's not going to carry them. He's not Bjergsen. He's not going to solo Bjergsen on a regular basis, but he's a good player. And then I think Dominate's good, and Quas is just a beast. I think Quas is awesome. I think their whole roster's great. I love that they're the opposite of CLG to me, and that I think their organizational structure is solid. They do a lot of smart things, and that's why I think this is the year that Liquid breaks the curse and goes the Worlds.
All right, and CLG at number 3. That's a very
so
far
I just
cry
have
from what the
like
rest of us
completely
thought.
different predictions than both of y'all.
Yeah.
That's
Very
okay.
similar.
This is the fun.
I know. So CLG. That's what I'm saying. I think it's the opposite in terms of Team Liquid and CLG. Not in their structure, really, but I mean in terms of their potential for this split. It could go the other way, but I think CLG, where their main problem was Link. That's the impression I got from all the drama as well, because I actually did read most of it. And I think that without Link, and also with kind of like putting all of that stuff on the table, it did clear out a lot of the mess they had going. And Zion is an amazing top laner. We will see about Pobelter, but I have faith that he'll do well. I really think he was being held back by the teams that he was on compared to Alltech, but I might be wrong about Alltech, but I think Pobelter really does have the potential that people have been talking about for so long. And then, of course, Rush Hour. If they, can have the rest of their team do the right stuff, then they'll always be reliable. X-Smithy is kind of the uncertain part of their team, I think. He definitely is good. He definitely dropped the ball in playoffs, though, so hopefully he can step up when it counts this season. For my predictions to hold true.
And that'll be interesting to see. I disagree, but, hey, that's what it's for.
According to Doublelift, Dandy is X-Smithy light, so...
Okay. So, in the top...
According to Doublelift, a lot of things that you cross your head.
The top two teams in a repeat of split... the spring split. We all think that TSM's... this is actually the opposite, but we all think that TSM's going to be second. We all think that Cloud9 is going to make it over the hump with Incarnation into first place.
All right. No disagreement.
Yeah.
Look at that. Is that? Do you think that that's belief in Cloud9, or do you think that's backlash against TSM?
Personally,
I can tell you what it is for me.
Personally, I think it's belief in Cloud9, but I'm sure that you're probably the opposite.
I am the opposite. I'm not like trying to dump on TSM. TSM's really good, and they'll probably.
I'll go with the 50-50 because I think TSM did. I kind of lost a little respect for them from MSI just because I think I had too much was the main thing. I had too much expectations for them.
It was IEM, man. They hyped us up with IEM.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay, no, they're not as amazing. I really thought they were gonna like beat some Koreans. But they didn't come anywhere close to that. Yeah. Cloud9, I think, is the better, has more potential, as we always use that word. But I really do think that they have a better shot at playing internationally than TSM. And so I'm hoping that they'll get first.
Yeah. All right. This was good. I like this part. We could have done a whole cast just with this. Well, thanks for joining us and sticking with us through the end there. This has been the BF's Word, and have a wonderful day.
Hooray. Cloud9 wins.